Hi, I'm Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the podcast host of Invest in Her and an award-winning producer, author, and TEDx speaker. Our show, Invest in Her, features phenomenal female founders and funders. As you know, women receive less than 2% of venture capital funding. Our series is about accelerating the funding of women by connecting them to funding resources. Let's meet today's guest. Welcome to this week's edition of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors, and of course, the host of Invest in Her. Thank you for so much for joining us today. Today, as always, we have on an extraordinary woman. She is the investment principal at Cortado Ventures out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Please welcome to the show, Susan Mooring. Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thanks for having me, Catherine.
You bet. I am excited to have you on, actually, because, so many of the people I talk to with every week, we want to give investment resources to people that are listening. And typically, the venture funds are in Silicon Valley or New York or, major cities. And I love that you're based in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, we there's a small but mighty crew of venture capitalists in the middle of the country that are sort of like, hey, we're here, come pay attention. We're doing some really cool stuff. So happy
and
to
I know you and I talked about this, there should be more. And I think that's coming. And it's one of the reasons, we have a movie coming out called Show Her the Money, because we want to take that film around the country and encourage more women to invest in funds like yours, to start their own funds, and to do that across the middle of the country, in the smaller areas, in the Midwest, because it should be and could be and needs to be in all of those areas, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I was actually at a conference a few weeks ago, and an audience member asked the panelists, where should you start your company, San Francisco or New York? And he answered, either one, but nowhere else. And to me, it was just crazy. It's still such an ignored part of the country, where we operate. And to us, it's sort of an arbitrage opportunity, right? Because no one else is looking. And so we can get great deals that aren't as competitive. But it is sort of, it's just surprising how ignored the part of the country still is for a lot of people when it comes to tech.
Absolutely. And I have so many questions for you. One is that who do you invest in? Because I know you're focused on tech. So I take it that you don't just focus on Silicon Valley tech founders. You must invest in ones all over the country. Is that right?
Yeah, so we're really regionally focused on what we call the mid-continent region. So that's essentially Oklahoma and all of the states that touch us. So Texas, Arkansas, Colorado, Kansas. And that's really our sweet spot. That's where we want to play. So we think they're outstanding, gritty, smart entrepreneurs who have a lot of industry expertise from running companies in this part of the country. So that's where we like to play.
That's great, because obviously there is so much innovation and brilliance all across the country. Why would we just focus on like 2 or 3 cities in the country? It's absolutely crazy and just missed opportunities. And so you bring investment deals to people that otherwise wouldn't be uncovered. And so I love that you serve that niche. I'm so interested in sharing how you got into venture, because it's so rare for women to be in it. As we know, that is why we're doing the film and doing a grassroots campaign around this, because there's not a lot of women like yourself. The good news is that it is accelerating. So as you and I know, for the first time in history, there are more women starting these funds than ever before. I know you're an investment principal there. How did you get started in this arena?
Yeah, so I guess I took sort of a non-traditional path into venture. I think it's
By the way, I think almost everybody does.
Yeah, I guess you
Right?
gotta stop calling it non-traditional when it's so common. But
Yeah, because most people have no intention of, oh, I'm going into venture capital, especially women. And they, most of them will say, oh, before I got into this, I didn't even know anything about it. That's very typical. And of course it is, because women haven't been told about venture capital. So that's not a surprise. Yeah.
yeah. Well, so when I started my career a decade ago, I knew I wanted to work with startups. I did some internships that were startups and early stage technology related. I knew I wanted to be in the startup field, but in Oklahoma, a job in venture wasn't really an option. There just weren't funds. I think at the time there were maybe two funds. They were very small. You know, not probably hiring at the time, and there just wasn't a lot of activity. And so I ended up going to work with the innovation consulting group out of the University of Oklahoma. And we did very early stage consulting work with entrepreneurs and technologies coming out of the university. So really very similar types of work to what I do now when I diligence a company. So trying to understand the market, talking to customers, talking to experts in the space, getting to know the founders and trying to figure out if we think they can pull it off and all that kind of good stuff. And so through that job, I really got to know a lot of the entrepreneurs around the state. We were in both major cities in Oklahoma, I got to know a lot of the entrepreneurs. And so when Cortado Ventures popped up as a new fund, I was able to come in and say, hey, I'm super plugged into this ecosystem. I know how to evaluate companies. I'm a great fit for the role. So it was a good jump for me. But when I did come into venture, the actual putting a deal together side of it was new to me. So learning all the definitions on a term sheet and all the different things you can negotiate. And so it was a good mix of things that I felt really good and confident in, and then things that I knew would be a learning opportunity.
Right. Which is always great. Like, who doesn't want to learn and grow and, elevate themselves. Right. So, and I love that you jumped into it. You did have that partial expertise, but, a lot of times people won't make the jump because they're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't know anything about that. Instead of, oh, I'm going to take the skills I have, apply it to this and learn the rest, because obviously it is learnable. Right. So you do deal sourcing there. Let's talk about that in a minute. You do diligence and you do post-investment support. So I want to talk about what each of those things means. First of all, deal sourcing. So you go out and try to find the deals that your fund is going to invest in. How do you do that? And how could somebody listening, apply for funding from Cortado Ventures?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few ways. Like I mentioned earlier, we're very regionally focused. And so a big part of our strategy is just making sure that we are known in the region that we like to invest in. So that means doing a lot of events, speaking on panels, going to startup weekends and that type of activity. It means building relationships with other funds and accelerator programs in our region where we like to invest so that they think of us when it's time to share deals and things like that. So that's all sort of our outbound strategy, is make sure that we are known in the areas where we want to see deals coming from. And then in terms of inbound strategy, how people can get in touch with us, we do have a sort of smart contact form on our website that will ask people for just some basics about the company, including geography, because again, it's very important to us. Geography, stage, industry, investment size that you're looking for, things like that. And the goal with that is to help us quickly identify if something might be a fit and not waste a founder's time if they're not. So we do read all of those and respond to all of those. So that's definitely the best way to get in touch.
Because some people are just listening and not watching the show, I want to spell Cortado Ventures for them. So it is Cortado.
That's correct.
CortadoVentures.com.
Yes. Cortado.ventures is actually our website.
Oh, Cortado.ventures.
Yep.
Great. Okay. And we'll be sure to put that in our post as well. So if somebody applies, they really need to either be in Oklahoma or one of the surrounding states with a tech innovation idea. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, we have a handful of companies that are not in our region, but even those companies have some strong tie to the region. So for example, we have a company that's based out of Florida, but the founder is originally from Oklahoma. So there really is this need for a tie to Oklahoma or the region.
Got it. Just curious, what kind of tech is that particular client?
So it's space tech. Yeah. So he's got a satellite imaging company. So it makes sense that they're in Florida, very close to launch sites. But yeah, he's a homegrown Oklahoman.
I love that. Okay. So either from that area or living in that area. And it's got to be a tech product. Do you have some ones that you've invested in that, really stand out in your mind at the moment that you could tell us about other than that one?
Yeah, of course. So our sweet spot is B2B tech. So we invest in companies that are selling technology products to businesses. And so we don't do a lot of consumer products or consumer tech, anything that relies on sort of trends or virality to get popular. We really like things that sell into businesses where there's clear financial ROI. Happy to talk about a couple of those. We have a great company here in Oklahoma City. It's called Drove Technologies. They have some really impressive technology for tracking what's going on in trailers. So it was really interesting. In the trucking industry, there's been a lot of technologies that have been brought to market for the truck itself, but then the trailer is like this giant box that's actually holding all of the value that a truck is transporting in the trailer, and nobody really knows what's going on with it. So Droves Technologies does everything from cameras and sensors and inside the trailer, but also monitoring wheel in pressure, which is one of the leading contributors to accidents. So super interesting logistics technology focused on the trucking industry. So kind of our sweet spot, legacy sectors make sense in the middle of the country, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. I mean, things that you wouldn't typically think about, but in that B2B market, business to business. Yeah. Interesting. So you also, besides deal sourcing, you do the diligence. So you decide a company is a probable candidate for your venture fund, then you do the due diligence. And what does that really entail? Like, tell people what that means.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a whole checklist of diligence items that we would go through with the company. That could take, anywhere from 1 to 3 months, depending on the deal. But I won't bore you with all the details. I think it really boils down for an early stage company to 3 things. So the first for me is the product, and really understanding, does it add value for a customer? And if we can't get to that, then it's really hard for us to believe that you can sell it if we don't understand, where there's value created. The second piece is the understanding the market. So is it big enough to support this kind of business? Do the macro trends make sense? And the third is the founder or the team. And the question we ask there is really, okay, if we believe that this product has value and there's a place for it in the market, is this the team that can execute on this idea and actually get it done? So I think all of the sort of checklist items that we do in the diligence process all go to answer, one of those 3 questions. And that's ultimately what we try to get to feel really comfortable about doing a deal.
That's great. That's very clear. And then the post-investment support, I always say that's one of the biggest things about getting into getting funding from venture capital. A lot of times people say, oh, I don't want to give up percentage, but the biggest value, I think, besides, of course, the money, is the support. So tell us a little bit about the kind of support you give. Is it like helping them find, businesses that would buy their product?
Yeah, so it really kind of runs the gamut in terms of things we can do to help our portfolio companies. Customer introductions is probably the most valuable one. So we tend to be more likely to invest in a company if we think that's something we can provide, right? We want to be helpful. We want to have contacts that make sense. We provide a year of executive coaching for all of our CEOs at no cost to them. So that's one of a big perk that Cortado provides that I haven't seen from too many other venture funds. We have a on staff accountant who can help very early stage companies with bookkeeping. So maybe if they're too small yet to have an outside accountant, we can provide some of that. And I mean, there are many other things, PR, discounts for different products they might want to use. So we try to really have a whole resource package, and then, get to know the companies, check in with them regularly to understand who might need what and when, and make sure we're connecting them to the right resources.
That's great. It's such an exciting field to be in, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. It's something new every day. It's something new every hour, usually.
Yeah. And, I love seeing young women like yourself in this space because there's so much room for growth. It's one of the reasons we're going to be taking our film, Show Her the Money, to universities, because we want more women like yourself. You came right out of college and pretty much went in head first. We want to see more women coming out of college, getting into venture capital, either starting their own funds or going and working for a fund like you did. I know you're an investment principal, and that means you invest in this venture fund as well, correct?
Yes and no.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're young, so I wasn't sure, but I know, that is something we're trying to encourage more women to do, is invest in these funds like Cortado. Yeah.
No, that's a great perspective. I think there is a good amount of missing education, especially in this part of the country, around what it means to invest in a venture fund, what it means to be an accredited investor, and things like that. So,
and women, you probably know this, women are coming into trillions of dollars in the coming decade from inheritance or from business or from whatever. And, they need to know about this opportunity to diversify their portfolio, right, into venture capital. And why would you say to them, if they were listening, why would investing in Cortado or a venture fund be a good part of their portfolio? Why would you say it makes a good investment?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't need to talk about historical fund returns for venture funds, because everybody can do their own research. So, I think there is, with the right funds, a great opportunity to make good money on your investment. But I think almost more importantly is we just need more women in seats at the table, and holding funds accountable, and being involved with fund events, and being willing to network with the fund's entrepreneurs and coach them, and all of those good things. Just the more women at the table, I think, the better.
Absolutely. I mean, women do bring a different perspective for sure. Research shows that companies who have both men and women at the top definitely, are more profitable. Female entrepreneurs tend to be more profitable than their male counterparts. So do you all make it a priority to invest in women founders?
Absolutely. Whenever we have the opportunity, yes, absolutely. So I think I don't have the stat off the top of my head. I should have had this ready for you, but I know we are punching above our weight in terms of the number of founders that we've invested in, and the dollars from our funds that have gone to women founders. We are well above industry average, but it is really difficult, especially for a fund like us who's doing B2B tech in legacy sectors like energy and manufacturing and supply chain and logistics. Like the number of female founders is already low, and then when you are specifically looking in those industries, they're even harder to find. So it does take work to seek out those outstanding women entrepreneurs and make sure they know about you and are getting into your pipeline and things like that. But the deals we've done in women entrepreneurs, we've just been so impressed with.
That's awesome. And you know what? I'm so excited that you're saying this, because as we take Show Her the Money, the film, on the road, I think we're going to discover that it's not that there's a lack of women creating B2B technology. I think it's that they don't know where you are and you don't know where they are. I think that's a big part of it. Most women are not familiar with venture capital or how to access it or anything about it. Just like you said, when you got out of school, you didn't really know about it, and the average woman doesn't. Which is why we're trying to pull back the curtain and educate women and inspire them as to why and how they should step into this arena, either as a founder with a great innovation, looking for funding, or as a woman that, needs to diversify their portfolio and is an accredited investor and looking for the best way to invest their money, A, to make a big impact on the planet, B, to help other women, and C, to have a lucrative investment that is diversifying their portfolio from just having, real estate, stocks, and bonds in the regular market. So thank you so much for having this conversation. I am so happy to see a young woman in venture capital and hope to see more and more. I know you're going to be an inspiration to our listeners. And thank you so much for taking the time today. I know you're at an event in another part of the country. You often are speaking on panels if people are looking for panelists, right, in this arena. It's always good to have a smart young woman in this space. So thanks for sharing your story. And I hope people reach out to Cortado Ventures. Are you guys on social media?
Yes, we are. We are at Cortado Ventures on all the platforms. So yes, come find,
great.
follow us.
And if you want to look for Susan on LinkedIn, her last name is Moring. That's Moring, Cortado.ventures. And of course, you can find us, Catherine Gray, Invest in Her, on Instagram, and sheangelinvestors.com. Please visit us and look for us on social media as well. And of course, anybody can follow our new Instagram, which is Show Her the Money Movie. We'd love to have you follow us. Susan, thanks so much for taking the time. Want to continue conversations in the future to hear what's happening, and excited that you guys are looking for women in tech that have B2B products. So happy to hear about this specific niche in the middle of the country, in the Midwest, serving that underserved market. Thank you for what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me and letting me share a little bit about our story.
You bet. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Remember to invest in her. Make it a great week.